Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. What's new this week, Mike?
Are you sure it's the Thriller Podcast, or are we about to be the Mitch Rapp Podcast?
Ooh, going back in time. Mitch Rapp Podcast. Yes.
A little throwback today is something special. We were offered a special exclusive, the first ones to interview Don Bentley since today the title was revealed for the next Mitch Rapp book, Mitch Rapp 25. And we got to ask the man himself, Don Bentley, about it right here on the pod. That was fun.
Yeah, the way you'll hear it is that we strong-armed our quote-unquote friend, David, the mystery bus Brown, into getting this interview. But I will say, organically, our patrons, they're the ones that do the work, not us. We just talk about it. And, hey, if it happens to generate an interview with the author, so be it. We'll take it.
Yeah, in exchange for us not posting and giving away the title, because we discovered it. We did a little sleuthing and found it early. We agreed to hold off on that until the announcement date. And because of that, they gave us a little extra special bump. But it was great talking to Don. I think one of the most intriguing things he says is we are going back post denied access, pre-transfer of power. We are back with an early wrap. So I was really happy to just kind of close the loop on that, because we were wondering, is he going to jump timelines again, the way Capture Kill was slotted in? Are we going to go back to the modern day contemporary rap post Code Red in the Kyle Mills verse? And it was really good to hear from Don that he had a vision. And as you'll hear him say, that vision is based on what he thought Vince Flynn would have wanted. And the research he found where Vince did publicly state in the archives that he thought the American Assassin trilogy could actually be a 4-book arc. And I'm really glad to hear that he was motivated by what Vince Flynn would have wanted and documentation of Vince Flynn saying there should be a 4th book in the series.
Yeah. So you'll find out the title with our interview with Don right now.
Today we are joined by a special guest. You know him, you love him, you heard him here before on the podcast. Welcome back to Sleight of Hand, Don Bentley. Do you know why I'm giving you that nickname?
I don't, but I think it might have something to do with the reason why you got this interview, because you guys blackmailed publicist. I think he may have offered to name his second-born child after you guys, but you settled for an interview with me, so I appreciate that.
That's great.
Yeah, that's part of it. But the other part is you did something tricky that not too many people would have picked up on. But our listeners, the patrons of Thriller Pod, they noticed a little tap of the 2 books you had in your last social media post. That was that a little teaser?
I mean, it might have been. It might have been significant. And I can't get anything past your patrons.
No, it's pretty hard. We're diehard fans over here.
Yeah, just to fill in the gaps, if you guys missed it, Don posted a really phenomenal little clip, a clue, a teaser. It wet the whistle of all rap fans worldwide. And he's holding up separation of power, transfer of power, saying that gives us some sort of clue to the next book. So maybe, Don, tonight you can give us a little insight into what that hint meant, help us maybe decode that puzzle, and tell us why, you chose to tap those 2 books together and what that means for the next Mitch Rapp book.
Yeah, so I guess we should start with the tap, huh? So the first, you're going to hear it here before anywhere else, because you guys play hard knuckle podcasting. The title for Mitch Rapp 25 is Double Tap. And
Awesome.
yeah. So
Great
you guys, it was super fun going back and forth with the title. I had it's funny. Sometimes when you're writing the book, you have a title in mind and it kind of grows into it. And then sometimes after you're done or as you're finishing, you give a bunch of titles and you start brainstorming. And so Double Tap didn't come from me. It came from the amazing folks at Atria Books, Emily Bestseller Books. But once I heard it, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That will actually sync up with something I'm trying to do with the book itself. So you'll have to, it fits kind of with Kill Shot. You know, you got Kill Shot and you got Double Tap, but I will say that Double Tap in this instance is probably a little bit different than what people are thinking it means. And so that's another little teaser for the book. I also don't, I think when we're taping this, the copy for the actual book is out now, the new copy and stuff. And so I'll talk about that. What I will say about this book is that we are staying with the American Assassin timeline. And so this will be the 4th book in the American Assassin timeline. It was really interesting. I'd had this idea for a while and then was looking through some questions that Vince had answered. If you go to the Vince Flynn website, there are a whole bunch of different, it's actually broken down by time period. And somebody asked him, hey, do you want to write more prequels? And he's like, I think 4 is the right number. And so just so happens that this is now the 4th prequel, and it is going to take place right after Denied Access. And I did give a hint of 2 other books that are important. I don't want to say why those are important because that would be no fun. But if you're a new to the Mitch Rapp, you will not miss anything. If you are a huge fan like the people in your patrons are, you'll probably see a couple nods to those 2 books in Double Tap.
I guess my first question is like, what led you to want to continue the Denied Access story?
Yeah, I was going back and forth. I had an idea for what I would do if I picked up after Red War and kind of had fleshed that out. And then I also had an idea for what I would do after Denied Access. And I went back and forth for a long time and actually talked to Emily Bessler about both. And I was really expecting her to kind of make the decision for me and say, hey, this is what I think you should do. And she said, both of those ideas sound great, and I think you should pick the one that gets you most excited to tell that story. And so there were still a couple loose ends remaining in the prequel universe for Vince Flynn and Mr. Mitch Rapp. And I thought, I think I gotta pull on those strings some more.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely our whistle was wet with Denied Access, but it definitely wasn't satiated. So I'm super excited because we after the last book, both me and Mike we had a couple pods just discussing like, all right, what are you gonna do? So.
Right. You pulled on the Greta string. That was one thing fans wanted, and you helped give us a little more insight. It's just so many other places you can go between there and. I guess Transfer of Power would be the next time we see Mitch Rapp in the timeline, but we do know Term Limits was happening as well in the background. So, God, my mind just goes crazy. And then because you posted the thing about Separation of Power, I went back and started rereading that one. Holy moly, we're getting Hank Clark, Congressman Rudin, just like there's all these characters coming at us hot and heavy. I'm like, to kind of make connections and find your lane, there's a million ways that can happen, and I'd be happy with any one of them.
Yeah, it was super interesting when I was reading in that same batch of questions, somebody asked Vince, hey, I can't remember if they asked him how old Mitch was or something about the time frame of Kill Shot. And he said, I refuse to answer that because I refuse to be tied down. But when I was doing the math and talking to Kyle about it and we were trying to figure it out, I may have even asked Ryan Steck about it at one point at his take. I think most estimates have somewhere between about 9 years or so from the end of Kill Shot to when Term Limits picks up, or excuse me, when Transfer of Power picks up and we see Mitch for the first time. And so there are a lot of things that can happen in those 9 years.
Sure.
And hopefully you get to see some of them in Double Tap.
All right.
Wow. That's promising. Now, the description gets into a jihadi cell. So, I'm also trying to figure out, because, you did the Bin Laden story, which was just genius to find out how that in our world could relate to the Mitch Rapp universe. And now that I'm hearing about a jihadi cell in that timeline, I'm wondering how you're going to flesh that out. So can you give us a little bit of hint about where we are with this cell?
Yeah. So what's super neat about the way Vince wrote Mitch is he had a lot of what I call kind of throwaway details where he just references hey, Mitch did this, or this thing happened, or like one of them he talks about, I think it might have even been in Transfer of Power, where that the Air Force smart bombs aren't as great as they actually pretend to be, and that Mitch Rapp spent a lot of time laying on a building somewhere, lasing targets for Air Force fighters, which is really, really interesting, but really, really different from anything that we've seen Mitch do in any of the Vince or Kyle books. And so along those same lines, he also, in Transfer of Power, you have Mitch Rapp undercover when the book when the book begins, and that he's nosing around as acting like he's this old man. And so he's obviously been undercover before and has done it, but we never got to see kind of the first time he had to go undercover. And actually, he was picked for his role on the Orion team, not just because he was a phenomenal athlete, not just because he could speak Arabic like a native, but because he looks like he belongs in those countries, right? That
Sure.
he's his features, his complexions, that he can pass for a native. But what's interesting is that you see in Killshot, Mitch is not working in a foreign country, right? He's working in Paris. And so even though he has this ability to pass that way, where Vince was using him in these books is in Europe a lot, right? He's going across, he's servicing targets. And I thought, well, what would that look like? What would that look like the first time he actually transitions from, hey, I'm a guy who just goes out and kills people on the hit list, to now I have to take that a step further and actually put a legend to use and go undercover and actually use all of those attributes that make him so unique. And so you get to see some of that in Double Tap.
Cool. What was it like writing this book this time around? This is your third book around? Like, was it easier? Was it
Yeah.
harder?
I think it was harder just from the standpoint that it's my 11th book total. And so when I was talking to Brad Taylor about this, who I think is maybe in the 20s or something of his books,
Yeah.
he said that any scene that he writes now that comes easy, he knows that's because he's already written that scene before. And so he has to go back and look at that. And so you have to spend a lot of time thinking, not just in the Mitch world, but in the other books I've written. What have I done before? How can I make it different? How can you want to both, especially with a Mitch book, you want to have it approachable for folks who have never read the series before, but still give the folks who have been, in this case, on the hook for all 25 Mitch books a reason to come back and still tell a compelling story and still do all of those things that make Mitch Rapp books. And so I think when I would maybe when I knew that I had the job to take over for Kyle, I had in my head kind of that Bin Laden idea that had been going around for a while. And then for Denied Access, I knew that I wanted to continue and write the last book in the original prequel trilogy. And so I had that. This one was a little more difficult just from the standpoint of, like, I know this is the time period I want to write in. I know here are kind of some of the threads that I want to pull on. I have sort of this idea for a story and how that could be compelling, but putting it all together in a way that meets the very high standards for Mitch Rapp fans was certainly pretty difficult.
Cool.
Yeah, we're a tough audience sometimes, but I think it's because people are so invested. I think people are so invested in Mitch Rapp more than other series. Usually, it just means something different to them. Like I know it does for the two
It's
of us.
the reason why this pod exists.
Exactly. We had to think long and hard about, wow, we're really going to finish reviewing the last Mitch Rapp book at that time. Is it worth doing another series, or what other series would we want to move into? And
Yeah,
I don't know. It was kind of tough transition to be like, wow, we're not going to talk every single week about Mitch Rapp. We're going to talk once a year about it, thanks to you, resurrecting it and keeping it alive. So,
yeah.
And Kyle, I remember he talked about that balance of wanting to the survivor was going to be a forgery, but then eventually he needed to find his own voice in the series. Do you feel like a third book is a good point at which you've developed what you consider, the Don Bentley version of a Mitch Rapp book, or the Don Bentley spin or voice of Mitch Rapp?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't know how many it took. I've never asked Kyle that, how many it took for him to feel comfortable or to feel, um, hey, I've got that. Or maybe he never did. Maybe he went. I certainly like, I'm in the editing phase for the book right now. It's due in about a month. And so every time I get to the point where I'm doing edits, I reread at least one of Vince's books, especially now because of the timeline it's in, because you just want to go back again and say, like, I have in my head how Stan Hurley behaves. How does Vince write him and how he behaves, right? What are the ways that Mitch talks about certain people, or what are the things? And I think that, constantly, I don't know that I'll ever get to the point where I feel like I have it figured out enough that I don't want to go back to a Vince book and go back to the source. Like what I said before, when I was writing Capture Kill, it was by no means saying that I wanted to take a break from what Kyle did or take things in a different direction. I just wanted to go back to what in my mind was the source material, right? That Mitch that Vince wrote, and what I didn't want to write was a derivative of that.
Sure.
My Mitch would be, which in some ways it's going to be anyway, because I'm not Vince and I can't write like he is, and I'm not Kyle and I can't write like he is. But that idea of that, instead of Mitch slowly changing with each writer, to still be able to go back and to the source material and say, what is vintage Mitch? How did he think? What was he like when he was 20 something years old? And to use that to kind of inform the stories I'm telling has been super helpful.
Yeah. And it's clear you've poured your heart and soul into doing that with these last few books. Do
Thank you.
ever envision yourself writing a book with an older rap or more contemporary rap, post Code Red or post Kyle era, or should whatever contract stage negotiation look like, would you want to stay in this time period with the younger rap that you've really honed in on, or could you see yourself branching out in the series down the road?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'd go back to what Emily said when I gave her two different story ideas, and she's like, "You're the writer. You're going to spend a year with this book. You need to tell the story that makes you the most excited." And so I
Sure.
think I have some ideas already for the next book of what, because as all writers do, as you're finishing the one that you're about to turn in, you're tired of it and you want to go on to something else, and that's when you have your best ideas that are trying to keep you from finishing the book that you're working on. And so I certainly would not rule any of that out, doing any of that stuff. I'm not by any means, and not, man, I had never envisioned writing the first three books all in Vince's era, Mitch. There wasn't any kind of conscious decision I made. It was just the stories that came to mind that I thought I could tell really well. And so I would not read anything into what I'm going to do next based on what I've done so far, for sure.
Good to hear. Yeah, I mean, well, we definitely enjoyed at least what you've added to the series.
Thank you.
I guess, I'll be the devil's advocate. What about Matt Drake? Have you thought about him at all? Like, we have other fans that are non Mitch Rapp fans that are clamoring for the next Matt Drake novel.
More
Yeah,
Frodo.
so I got to do some, and Frodo, I got to do some Matt Drake stuff this year, in that I've got a little over a year ago, we entered into an agreement with a studio to do a TV version of Matt Drake, and they brought in a couple of different writers. And what you do as the writer of the original source material is you're trying to be helpful, but you're also trying to explain, know when to stay out of the way, but also be able to say, hey, here is what makes this series different and why it's different from anything else that's on TV. Because whether it's true or not, all of us writers believe that what we have written is completely unique and could not be written again by just anyone. And so
Sure.
over the course of going back and forth with the producer, I said, hey, what if I wrote the pilot? And he said, okay, let's give that a shot. And he really liked it. And I got to do another version of the pilot. And so it was a ton of fun to go back and write Matt and Frodo again, of figuring out how to adapt that for TV. And so that was super fun. I got to spend some time with him doing that. There's another project that I can't announce just yet. We're finishing the contract for, that it should be announced and pretty soon. That'll also come out this year. Not necessarily a Matt Drake project per se. I'm still trying to figure out what it's going to look like. So there will be something else from me this year. And then I have a standalone that I've been working on way too long. I would have finished it this year if I hadn't gone back and written that pilot. And I'm about halfway through with that. So I think, I know the other thing coming out this year will be before the next Matt Drake book. I think the standalone probably will be too. Maybe we'll get to do something with the TV stuff, but I haven't forgotten about Matt and Frodo for sure, and intend to come back to them at some point. But I'm very, very fortunate that I have more projects than I have time to work on them right now.
Oh, that's good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, they're keeping you busy with all this. So we do want to let you go, but one last thing is, can you give us any insight to the cover for Double Tap? Has that been decided on? Have you seen any mock-ups or rough drafts?
I have seen the mock-ups, and we've gone through 2 versions of it, and the kind of the best covers in the world, I think, are the ones you haven't really thought of, and then when you see it, it's like they reached into your brain and pulled out what you couldn't articulate, and this one is that one. And so I think you guys will have to work your magic with David, but I think you're going to be seeing the cover pretty soon.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we'll be bugging him.
David's our best friend and our least favorite. We're his least favorite person. So
he's been got good you guys on caller ID, and he's like, "Oh no, what did they figure out this time?"
Yeah. Well, we won't spoil any more of the secrets if we get them. We'll run them by David first, and hopefully we'll blackmail him into having you back again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Best of luck with all those projects, and looking forward to an announcement about the tour, because the book comes out September 15th. Is it mid-September?
Yeah. Sometime in September. Yeah. They tend to mess around with the actual dates a little bit, but I think it'll be sometime in September.
And is he going to send you out? Is he going to pick some cities for you to go tour?
He will, and that's what I try, and I'm going to start giving out his email address every time somebody tweets at me, and I'm like, talk to the mystery bus guy. I'm not the guy that decides. So yeah.
Well, we'll strong arm him into sending you to DC so we could do a live event with you. What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Or maybe, you live in Texas?
Yeah.
My sister-in-law lives in Fort Worth, so maybe I'll come visit you in Texas.
Nice. Yeah, that's only about 3 hours up the road, so that's not very far in Texas distance. So
exactly
around the corner. Yeah, because Matt Drake's a Texas guy now that I think about it, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Don. We can't wait for this book and all the buzz on social media over the next few months. And it's always that summer, summer's coming to an end and everyone's looking forward to it. And I know right when I go back to school, I'm a teacher, when the Mitch Rapp book comes, I'm like, drop all the stress, everything in my life right now. It's Mitch Rapp season come September. So looking forward to talking to you a little closer to that.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
So, Double Tap. What do you think about the title, man?
Wow. I thought one thing, but now with Don saying it's not what you think it is,
differently. Like now my mind is racing.
First time I heard it, I thought the Mozambique method, how that's always mentioned. I think Jack Carr put it in his books. I think it was in early Vince books. 2 taps to the center mass, 1 tap to the forehead. I was thinking the double tap was the 2 shots, but maybe it's not a bullet. Is it double tap on a trigger? I don't know.
Yeah, it opens up a whole bunch of different scenarios. But yeah, so one thing we didn't get to really dive into and didn't really want to talk about before having Don on, just is the book description that's going to come out at the same time when we're dropping this episode. So just to read it out here, right? Mitch Rapp signed up to be an assassin, a lone wolf who hunts and kills his nation's enemies on their turf. Now he has a new mission. When Mitch's target, a Pakistani chemical weapons scientist for hire, is snatched from the streets of Verona, the American assassin must penetrate the jihadi cell responsible for this brazen kidnapping before they can make use of the scientist's deadly expertise. Mitch isn't the only one interested in the scientist. The Pakistani represents an existential threat, a threat that will fray alliances, force enemies to seek common ground, and resurrect long-settled vendettas. As the events triggered by the kidnapping cascade out of control, Mitch Rapp must stop the chain reaction before the Middle East reaches critical mass. Like that's we originally thought the title was going to be Critical Mass.
When that description ended with critical mass, I remember thinking that. So that vendetta, I almost wanted to ask him, but I didn't want to press too hard. It seemed like he didn't want to reveal too much this early.
He mentioned that that Double Tap was not his idea.
And not his idea, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of had to wonder about, like, how do I take this title and what does it have to do with the book? So yeah, I wonder what that editing process would have looked like. But the one I wanted to ask him about the long-standing vendettas. We're resurrecting old vendettas. Combine that with what he said in his other teaser on social media, that this book is somehow related to transfer of power and separation of power. I mean, there are so many characters in those two books. If you take transfer of power, separation of power, you can just list them off. We're talking Rafik Aziz, General Flood, Donatella shows up in separation of power a lot. I mean, there's just so many different callbacks that you could do. I really wonder about that little hint. What does this book have to do with transfer of power and separation of power? He didn't want to go too deep in it, so I didn't press on what are these long-standing vendettas, but
the book isn't even submitted yet, so
the book isn't even fully written yet, and we've got till September, so we're just jumping the gun here as we do on the Mitch Rapp Pod. But wow, I am so glad we're back in this time period. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I think it's I think when we did our last pod discussing like the follow-up of speculating what we thought could happen, we had kind of suggested that, hey, this was definitely an option. And now that we're definitely going to go down that route, I think that's my preferred option. Like, instead of going, I don't know. I kind of do want to see like what's after like a post Code Red wrap. But I think they're kind of wait. I think there's a lot of meat still left on the bone, especially within this time period. Out of I guess the three options would be this time period, randomly inserting into another book, or following Kyle.
Yep.
If you're not going to just like give your own story and follow Kyle, I would much rather you just fill in this time.
Do this.
Because there's so many years that we've been speculating about that is left. Like, I'd rather you just do that.
Like you mentioned, that 9-year gap before we get to transfer of power. Yeah. And I think what's promising about that is, it's why I asked that question about Don Bentley's voice for the series. It really seems like it's in his wheelhouse, his comfort zone, to write that younger Rapp and to be in the characters' heads where they were in that earlier time period. Because even his and Irene's relationship is very different from then till now. He got to write Stan Hurley in the last book. So I feel like his wheelhouse is that era, right? Well, late 90s-ish. And now, yeah, I would probably say in the late 90s or so. It just seems like so comfortable for him to write that. And he's establishing a voice. So I think another book or more, we'll hear what happens with announcements for the future, but another book or more in this time period would definitely satisfy my itch. So I was fine with that decision. Real happy to hear about it. And I think it's his voice for the Mitch Rapp series comes through in this time period better than it may trying to pick up with Kyle's time period. Who knows? But
yeah, and we're recording this obviously before we've seen the cover, but he did mention that maybe with this episode we might be able to drop the cover. So we may have to like come back on and re-record like a little postscript about the cover, but cover to TBD. Excited about it. Double Tap. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So Kill Shot was a single shot, like Double Tap. Like, all right, you're expanding on that. Like,
just makes sense.
Just makes sense.
It's so smart. It's so smart.
Yeah.
We're in good hands, Chris.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get out of here, we have to thank our patrons. Like, this episode wouldn't even exist without our patrons, because Adam was the one that found this out and started this whole sleuthing exercise. So need to thank our patrons, including...
Yeah, and if you want to join this elite group of the best thriller fans in the world, where the conversation never stops, we're hunting down leads, we're searching social media, we're finding all the interviews. Many of our patrons are traveling to go on the book tours or head over to conferences. So we are getting live breaking updates and the most recent events of everything Thriller. So if you want to be part of that group, head to thrillerpod.com, click the book club tab, and become a patron to help support the pod and join the conversation, because it never stops talking thrillers in the group chat.
Yeah, and look out for us, BoucherCon 2027, Washington,
Yes,
D.C.
sir.
We're going to be there.
Big things are planned.
All right. I have our list. Our deputy directors, Sherry F. and Brad E. Our special agents, Adam, Mike, Ben, Daryl, George, Matt, Dawn, and Chris. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons of No Limits. You can find us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Find us at thrillerpod.com and on Twitter and Instagram at Thriller Podcast. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch.